Yeah. The board is reconvening from executive session. There will be no action out of executive session. So at this time, if we could do roll call, Director Drake.
Liz Drake, Director, District 3.
Hiro Shiato, Director, District 5.
Claire Wilson, Director, District 2.
Jeffrey McAnalloy, Director, District 1.
Carol Gregory, Director, District 4.
And now if you'll all please rise for the presentation of the colors. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Campbell.
Dr. Campbell, Superintendent.
Just superintendent, right? Now if you'll all please rise for the presentation of the colors by Federal Way High School, JROTC.
Forward. March.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Face. Forward. March.
Please be seated. So at this time, I entertain a motion to accept the adoption of the meeting agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of March 28th, 2017, as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And entertain a motion for the approval of the required approvals agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the required approvals agenda of March 28, 2017, as submitted.
A motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And now, why most of you are here, the good news announcements.
All right, here we go. This is one of our favorite ways to start our meetings. So I am proud to announce 4 TAF Academy students recently competed in a 3-day Student Innovation Challenge sponsored by the architecture and engineering firm, the DLR Group. Our scholars won the award for innovation for the public service announcement they created on the topic of ending homelessness. I'd like to invite Paul Okerlund from the DLR Group forward. Paul will present a certificate and learning scholarship with $200 to our students as they are called forward. Angelica Collin, Pablo Rodriguez, Gerline Bassi, and Christopher Heredia. This is in direct support of our strategic plan, Goal 3, engaged, empowered critical thinkers. Congratulations, scholars.
are proud of our scholars and staff who competed and won awards at the Western Washington National Speech and Debate Association competition. The Western Washington District is comprised of about 50 schools in Washington and Alaska and includes 4 Federal Way public schools, Thomas Jefferson High School, Federal Way High School, Todd Beamer High School, and Taft Academy. Thanks to Andrew Buchan, Louise Gorn, and other coaches who spent hundreds of hours investing in these scholars and their speech and debate skills that will benefit them long after high school. I now invite the following individuals to be recognized for their achievements, including those staff members who received awards for their contributions to the Western Washington District this year. So please do come forward as I call your names. And first, we have our very own Dr. Tammy Campbell, Communicator of the Year. Very proud. We then have Isaiah Parker, Alumni of the Year. Fabulous award. Sadly not here, but let's give him a round of applause anyway. Zach Gostisha, Federal Way High School Student of the Year. First place. Zachary also placed first in International Extemporaneous and first place Congressional Debate. Students can only compete in one event at Nationals, and Zach has chosen Congressional Debate. Is Zach here? Let's give him a round of applause. Sarah Jacob, Taft Academy, first place oral interpretation. Sarah will advance to the national competition. Well done, Sarah. Round of applause. Cindy Lee and Eric Dillard, Thomas Jefferson High School. First place, duo interpretation. Cindy and Erica will advance to the national competition. Come on down. Andrew Tang, Thomas Jefferson High School, third place informative. Let's come on down. Justin Kwan, Federal Way High School, second place International Extemporaneous. Justin will advance to the national competition. Congratulations, Justin. Hakeem Shibley, Thomas Jefferson High School, third place, United States Extemporaneous and Oratory. Well done. Skylar Yesiltepa. I practiced that so much and it went awfully wrong. I do apologize, Skylar. Thomas Jefferson High School, third place, Foreign Extemporaneous. Well done. In addition, Andrew Tang, Hakeem Shibley, Hanan Ajmal, Skylar, and Maria Thompson, all from Thomas Jefferson High School, will be representing Western Washington in World Team Debate at Nationals. Hanan Ashmal and Maria Thompson, please come join your team up at the front to be recognized. Well done. And of course, I would like Andrew Buchan to be coming up this way as well. And anyone else on the team, even if your name hasn't been called out, I really would love you to join. That's the state one is. Yeah. This effort is in direct support of Goal 3 of our strategic plan, active learners, engaged, empowered, critical thinkers, and Goal 4, content area competence, mastery of all subjects. Congratulations to everyone. We are proud of you.
Let's see how fast the debate club
Way to go, Raiders. There's going to be some duplication, so those of you who are sitting down, be prepared to come back up, which is in your honor. On March 11th, Thomas Jefferson High School came home with its first team state championship in speech since 2007. TJ had more people in the finals, 10, than any other school. Would the following coaches and scholars please come forward to be recognized? Coach Andrew Buchan. Coach Isaiah Parker. Coach Jessica Garman. Coach Mary Kay Soderlin. Hakeem Shibley. Would you come up, please? He earned the first individual state championship for TJ since 2013. Hakeem placed first in impromptu. Luke Sorensen placed second in dramatic interpretation. Avanti Bryant placed second in oratory. Zach Wall finished third in humorous interpretation. In addition to our award winners, a number of other Raiders represented TJ at state. Please come forward when I call your name. Grace Guderi, Amanda Fowler, Skylar Yeseltepa, Jennifer Frias, Andrew Tang, Amara Schwartz, Praises Orhi, Faith Elder, Haley Ruppel, G. Lynn, Maria Thompson, Erica Dillard, Cindy Lee, Mark Camishin, Carlos Santana, Julia Sheets, Jared Tran, Hannah Jamal. Hannah, I'm sorry. This is in direct support of Goal 3 of our strategic plan, active learners, engaged, empowered, critical thinkers, and Goal 4, content area competence, mastery of all subjects. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, scholars. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. All the tireless hours. Appreciate it.
This next recognition is for creativity and commitment to student learning and ensuring all students are healthy, aligning with college and career ready by the time they graduate, aligning with Goal 5 of our strategic plan. SHAPE America is the nation's largest membership organization of health and physical education professionals. It defines excellence in physical education and is committed to empowering all children to lead healthy and active lives. Each year, SHAPE America recognizes one individual who exemplifies leadership with the Physical Activity Leader Learning System, and it embodies the Let's Move active school spirit and champions a comprehensive school activity program, a physical activity program within his or her community. Tonight, the board would like to recognize Lake Grove Elementary Health and Physical Education Specialist Dana Henry as the recipient of the 2017 Let's Move Active Schools Outstanding Physical Leader. After attending a physical activity leader training, Dana engaged her school community to better address the physical education needs of the Lake Grove student body. Not only do scholars at Lake Grove learn about health, fitness, and sports in their daily physical education lessons, they are engaged in physical activity throughout the day and after school. Thank you very much, Dana.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the legislative liaison update. Director Drake.
So last week, the Senate budget proposal was issued, and yesterday, the House budget proposal for fully funding basic education. Both proposals were entered in. And obviously, a few weeks ago, we had Governor Inslee's budget proposal issued out. So we now have 3 competing budget proposals. There's a lot of conversation going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of action taking place to try to negotiate and pull together a single budget that is going to meet the needs of funding basic education. Jeffrey and I, our board president, McAnally, and myself, and thanks to the position that President McAnally has on the legislative committee, he's the chair, we had the fortune of being part of backroom conversations that are going on. It's called Four Corners, led at the moment by Representative Litton, trying to hear people's voices about the different proposals and trying to get a sense of what it is that is going to meet fully funding basic education for everyone. And we're there learning. I'm learning so much. But also presenting some of our district's needs so that those needs, as the budgets are being fleshed out and merged and negotiated, hopefully will enable Federal Way to get the very best deal possible. So we've been meeting Dr. Campbell, Sally McLean, Danny Pfeiffer, Dr. Pfeiffer. We've been meeting, Jeffrey and myself as a team, trying to guide some of our thoughts to present to this group. It's been very valuable, and we will continue these conversations so that Federal Way and all our scholars get the very best we can try and help produce. The other bill that I'm certainly very interested in, 1046, House Bill 1046. This is the delinking of graduation requirements, language arts, math, and the biology EOC, science, from graduation requirements. The Senate Bill 5891, which is a sort of companion bill, is strongly voicing the need to delink the biology EOC from graduation requirement, and it really will impact hundreds of our present graduating class of 2017, and I'm working with Dr. Campbell and James Crawford so that we can present data that reinforces the need for this bill to pass. So that's it. That's my report.
Thank you, Director Drake. Our next item is quarterly reports. So Director Gregory and Director Drake, City Council update and report.
So we, Carol, Gregory, and myself, 2 directors, met with 3 city councillors, Mark Kopang, Lydia Asefa Dawson, and Jean Burbage, on February the 9th. We met to gain a closer understanding and appreciation of the different but so similar roles that if we are going to truly meet the needs of our scholars, we need to be collaborating and working collegially on many issues. And I'm just going to talk a little about, and Carol, please jump in. I'm going to give some broad overviews and then you fill in. So we talked about how the city can perhaps work more closely with us with some enrichment, some opportunities for our scholars, especially during the summer, but other times. And we talked about perhaps shadowing, some of our scholars shadowing people in the parks and recreation, the police, various opportunities that our scholars have that they perhaps don't even know about. So doing some shadowing. And we are in conversation with our superintendent and district, and we will be meeting again in May. Our city council folk are speaking with their other councillors and the mayor to see what we can put in place. So that's one thing that we're doing. We updated the city council on our strategic plan and talked about ways that we can make what we are doing as a district more transparent for the city. We shared the developments that are taking place at Saholly with the TAF Academy moving from its present location to be part of Saholly, and they really appreciated knowing that sort of detail. And the fact that STEM is such an important part of our modern career opportunities, and to have greater numbers of our scholars having these opportunities to be successful as they move on into careers or college is critical, and they really appreciated the fact that we are providing this funnel, this path to work in our community. We also we had an update on affordable housing and the plans that they have in place for that. And we also updated the team on our facilities committee and the work that we're doing. And I don't want to go any further on that because we're going to be talking about that quite a bit. So, Carol, anything else?
Thank you. I would only mention a couple of other things. The reason we are talking about job shadowing or internships or that kind of thing is that we recognize that in the city of Federal Way, as an example, a majority of the jobs that we create right now, or may not be a majority, but it's a large number, are in the public sector. And so how can we encourage students to look not only at a profession, but also look at what the opportunities are in the public sector, such as the school district, the city, and so forth. And so that was one of our drivers on that. The other thing I might mention that we haven't really talked about yet, but I'm more and more interested in it, and that is our working together on issues of safety, and particularly on those students who walk to school over very busy school or streets. And obviously, we have the security around lights and blinking lights and so forth at crosswalks. But do we have some that really still put students at risk? And should we be thinking of things such as walkways that go over streets? And these are things I think we could enter into conversation about, much of which is money that those are paid for because many of those streets are state streets by others, but we could really enhance the security of our students in that way. And if anybody has ideas, we'd love to hear them.
Great, thank you both. All right, the next quarterly report is the Facilities Planning Committee. Dr. Campbell, you want to start us on that one?
So I'll just provide a little context, and Director McAnally and Director Drake both serve as observers on this committee. We had outreach to over 100 members of the city to be a part of the Facilities Planning Committee. I would say on any given night we have between 50 and 70 participants who've shown up to our committee meetings, and they have really provided broad-based insights and input using data on the recommendations that are going to be coming out in our forums. So here are just some big ideas. We have our elementary schools that right now could currently house, they're built for a capacity of about 9,100 scholars. We actually have 10,100 scholars in our elementary schools. And we have to address that crowding. And we're also a district that's growing at slightly under 1%. And so we have a growing population, and we're about 1,000 scholars over. The other issue is that our facilities are aging. We have 19 buildings that are 40 years or older. And so we want to be good stewards and continue to maintain and modernize and update those facilities. So we have two areas that we need to really be addressing through the Facilities Planning Committee. And when you look around in the surrounding districts, whether it's Renton, Puyallup, Kent, Highline, all these districts have passed bonds to modernize and update their facilities. We have to see our facilities as what I would call the bones, in some ways, of our city that would sort of support folks wanting to move to Federal Way, that would support house values continuing to rise, but more importantly, that would support the learning of our future generation who are going to be living and working not only in the region, but right here in Federal Way. So I encourage folks to come out to the forums to hear more about the work of the committee and the recommendations that will be moving forward, all in the name of ensuring our strategic plan goals are met, and we know that the learning environments have a huge part in that.
Dr. Drake?
Just wanted to comment on how valuable it's been being an observer at these facilities planning meetings. I've lost count of how many, 5, 6, and they've been extremely well organized, thoroughly well planned, and there really has been a sense of flow in what we have experienced. We started off by talking about the purpose of the planning committee, and it was a shared understanding of present facilities, shared vision of future opportunities, and then making a recommendation after receiving all the information, all the knowledge, making a recommendation to the community, the superintendent, and the board for voter consideration. As Dr. Campbell said, 19 schools, 40 years or older. We started looking at priorities. How are we going to phase the building? And that took us on field trips. It made us look at and think about planning considerations. What are the guiding principles? And every session started with the overview of our strategic plan. We never lost sight of this in relation to our strategic plan, which I thought was very strong. We looked at enrollment and capacity, building conditions, and that's where the field trips came in so useful. As much as I know TJ, I went to TJ, I had no idea what the boiler room was like. It's an area I'd never visited. I wish I had. And then financing considerations. We were then looking at what we thought the top 10 needs schools would be to build a phase 2 recommendation. And walking through all of this with us was an independent project management firm that worked really very closely and very sensitively with us as we were talking about very difficult situations. So the workshops on the financial considerations were very revealing, and looking at the total project costs, legal debt limits, taxpayer costs, all the things you need to know and understand to make a recommendation. And then, just as Dr. Campbell is saying, the community forums, as we now move out to each of the 5 community forums all being held in April, we can get buy-in and better understanding, sharing with the community. And I loved, the very last thing we did at the last session was coming up with taglines. There were 3 that got most votes. Our community, our investment, their future. Second tagline, together we hold bright futures. Third, very simple, build, learn, succeed. And these are the taglines that the community will help us narrow down to one that will help us as we move forward to a bond.
So just a couple more thoughts. This has been going on since October, and as Director Drake shared, I think we've had 5 or 6 meetings now. You know, the economic development really is hinged on what our schools do and how we do in schools. And it's important for our community to make sure that we have thriving, cutting-edge technology buildings to take care of our scholars and make sure they're getting the best education they can. So that's part of this process, is looking at that and what do we do for phase 2. The other thing we need to be aware of is that we're probably going to have to look as a board in the summertime at taking a loan for maintenance for some things that we have on our aging buildings, be able to take care of the needs that are currently before us. And that's kind of what bonds take care of. It's been a 10-year lag now since we've had a bond. And so it's time for us to begin to look at and turn to our community to say, we've got to take care of our buildings for the future of our scholars, for the future of our community, and all of us in Federal Way. It's important to make sure that we are thriving in this public school district, and that's part of our responsibility as a board. So I'd encourage you, there are 5, it's posted on the website to tell you. It's at 5 different, each one of the districts will be representative. Federal Way High School, which is my District 1, will be on April 13th. So I'd encourage you to please come and participate, listen to what has been the findings out of this group of over 100 community members and staff, and please give your input. The taglines, I'm excited to see where it goes, and it's just, we appreciate your support, and please be involved in the process. One last thing, so when we talk about numbers, it really is 63 classrooms, right? We've got to figure out how to enhance and move things up to create 63 classrooms within our facilities to make sure that we're taking care of our students based on funding we get from the legislature for the right class sizes in a K-3 environment. So that's an important piece as well, to make sure that we're funding and getting all the funding that we can get from the legislature. All right, next item on the agenda is public comments, and I don't have any. So there are blue sheets on the back if you're ever interested in making a comment. You fill out one of those sheets and turn it in, and then you have that space to do that. Next item on the agenda is superintendent comments. Dr. Campbell?
So I just want to start out by saying we had some really good learning, as well as just good board superintendent work at a recent National School Board Association meeting in Denver. And I picked a couple of sessions that really helped me to think more about some of the current projects and work that are happening in the district, because often there are other districts that are working on similar things. They are sometimes farther along than we are, so you can really get some good ideas, and sometimes they're doing things that maybe we thought we wanted to do, and then based on what you learn, you don't want to do it. So it was some really, really good learning for these last few days. There are a couple of experiences that stand out, while I have made my rounds to different schools. One is the student advisory to the superintendent. Met with that group a week ago, and they will be coming to the board soon to present a recommendation for how to integrate students on our school board. So in the fall, you will start to see 2 scholars on sitting, amongst the board and providing student perception, scholar experience, and we are going to have students who will be the group that will help to design that process. When you think about our own tagline for our strategic plan, we talk about each scholar a voice, a dream, and a bright future. Well, this is actually modeling that and not just having words on a page, but doing things that really will allow our scholars to have voice. That superintendent advisory means that every middle and high school has 2 representatives who meets with me as superintendent once a month to share with me what they think is working related to our strategic plan and what things they think we can do to get better. And it's amazing to hear what these young people have to say. They're pretty wise, and in a lot of ways they're giving us feedback about their lived experiences. And so every time I'm with them, I'm stretched. In this last meeting, Director Eto and Director Wilson were there to hear some of their thinking and can attest to what some of the things that our folks had to say, some of the scholars had to say. Also, on Monday of last week, I played chess with 10 scholars, and I am amazed at how scholars come, how much prep they've done to get ready for this. Often they think they're playing me individually. Well, I'm actually not playing them, I'm coaching and moving around. But I had Chris, and I have Chris Worth, who teaches at Todd Beamer, helped me this time because he does a chess club at Todd Beamer, and so he helped me to coach the scholars. And the reason we do this is that we want to promote this idea that there are so many things that young people can do to really challenge their mind, to be critical thinkers, to be problem solvers. And sometimes, while I know athletics are an important part of what we do, I also want scholars to know that thinking, whether it's debate, math club, all kinds of other things are the kinds of skills that they will be using in the workplace, and we want to really encourage that. And so we're going to have a chess tournament, district-wide chess tournament at Todd Beamer the first or second week in June. You'll hear more about it. And the way we're structuring it is because any scholar who plays in the tournaments with me once a month gets a chess set, a portable one that they can take to school, roll up in a little sack that goes over their shoulder. They can bring their chess set and a partner to play chess with. But we'll look through this big bag, and I will swear at elementary, I think I probably have 600 or 700 scholars who wanted to play chess this time, and there's no way we can do it. So we're going to send out invites to a lot of those scholars so they get to come to Todd Beamer and play chess. And again, press those critical thinking skills, problem solving, logic, all the things that we know adults need to be successful in the world of work and play and all kinds of other things. So those are just a couple of highlights.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. All right, now it's board comments. Director Drake, would you like to start us this evening?
Just a couple of things that have been going on in the last week that I'd like to share. First of all, Director Claire Wilson and myself attended one of the board and superintendent school visits to Todd Beamer, and probably it was so fortuitous that we arrived, and maybe Dr. Campbell knew about this.
No, it's always a surprise. We never tell them that we're coming.
No, okay. So just fortuitously, a group of students were with Joni Hall, the principal, and they were discussing some of the cultural, the sense of change that they are experiencing at Todd Beamer. And they were so coherent, they were so spot on with many of their observations, talking about the fact that these security officers that are there are learning student names, are authentic, and the scholars really feel that they care about them. So when they're telling them to go to class, they're not resisting being told because they really feel the officers care about them. And this may seem simple and obvious, but it's not what they were experiencing before, and it's made a huge change within the culture of the school. And it was just so impressive the way they expressed what they were saying. I just wished we could have recorded it because it was so uniquely profound what they were saying. And we then went around the school, and there is a really positive feel around the school. And I really appreciate these visits that we have to give us an opportunity as a board to see what's going on the ground. So that's, and I just wanted to follow up with what Dr. Campbell said about the National School Boards Association. We went, many of us on the board, and it was a bonding and a learning experience. And I just want to share 3 of the sessions that I went to. Ariana Huffington of Huffington Post spoke as a keynote speaker, and she talked about the fact that she's left Huffington Post because 10 years ago, I think, she had a really serious life crisis, health crisis, and it's because she was always on, 24 hours a day, answering email and doing all that. And she started this new company called Thrive, and I really urge you to check into it, and she talked about how our scholars, multitasking is a myth. When scholars or adults are saying, oh yeah, I can do this and I can listen, it's a myth. And she was talking about the fact that a good leader needs to have good rest, needs to have a sense of well-being. And we all looked at each other and agreed, but it's how you do it. And just as a really cute little thing, and Claire actually found this, they've got these little beds for your phone that you plug in
Up to 10.
at nighttime, so that, and out of the way, so that you don't have your phone by the side of you, so that every time it beeps or whistles at
And
you.
a blanket,
And
for
it's
it.
got a blanket. It was such, I'm going to get one for my grandchildren, and maybe for me and Miles as well. But it's serious. And one little thing that really will stay with me forever, she was talking about our high school scholars waking up early. And she said it's like a washing machine cycle. If they're fast asleep and they have to get up at 6:30, it's like your washing machine stopping halfway through the cycle. And what have you got? Dirty, wet clothes. So when our scholars are going to school, and I can testify to this, at 7:30, they're like a load of washed out clothes. They're not part of it. It just made me really think. I'm not suggesting that we start moving into changing the schedule or anything, but it's a good learning experience. So please look up Thrive. You'll learn so much. Then I attended the competency-based education that is really gaining momentum throughout the country. And with it being a national conference, there were people from literally all over the country, and they shared their experiences of the focus being on closing gaps. Not every child of the same age in the same class, it's really much more related to their skills and their level of performance. Talking about the Every Student Succeeds Act, giving states much more flexibility with assessment, and the view of assessment of how we can move forward at the local level with it being our scholars moving once they've shown competency. That really got my head moving. And then I attended a session on students on school boards, knowing that we were going in that direction, just to hear what other schools, just as Dr. Campbell said, there were so many schools there represented, districts represented, who are already doing it, and it was great hearing their input. So great few days.
Thank you. Director Eto?
Okay, I'll go over some of the visits I made to the schools. On the 15th of March, I went to the Sahali Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math displays. I ran into President Macanello there. I was really impressed with the presentations that the students made from colonization of planets or colonization in spaceships to constitutional law, the right to life, right to privacy, gun control, immigration policy, so articulate, so well thought out, and it was all underrun by the language department because their belief was that you have to not only have good ideas, but you have to present them, not only in writing, but in speaking. So it was a really great event, and I'm really looking forward to how the STEM program there ramps up as Taft moves there. On the 16th, I went to Enterprise, where they were having an independent reading family event. And the thing that really came out was just how hard the teachers have been working to line up their schedules so that the student-led conferences can be held to meet the convenience and the needs of the parents there. So, I mean, it's so important now that we've ramped up so heavily on parent-teacher conferences led by the students so that the parents understand how they can help their students succeed. And then on the 17th of March, I went to the Federal Way Public Academy where they were having a student-written play, The Overdose, and it really drove home the fact that the arts is really important. It's no different than sports and other things that fully engage a student, really want them to come to school. There were great performances there, and I really enjoyed that event. And it all kind of wrapped up for me on the 20th of March when I attended the briefing by the student advisory to the superintendent on establishing student voice within the board, the school board. Very engaged students, so caring about wanting to make change. It was really inspirational to hear and see how many were involved. So I'm looking forward to how they come out with a final recommendation to the board on how they think that students can be best representative on the school board. Thanks.
Director Wilson?
I just have a couple things that add to the conversation. Some may be here, have been here, some may not have been, but a couple years ago we had a proposal as a board to explore the concept of student representation. And when Superintendent Campbell came on board, she asked us to kind of put a break on it, to kind of get the strategic plan in place and to get her feet under herself as a new superintendent. But all the while knowing that that was going to be something that as a board we, number one, felt very strongly about, number two, it wasn't happening probably fast enough, but we're really glad it's happening. The student advisory is where the group has created a process, and they haven't just talked about it, but when Director Eto and I had an opportunity to visit them, and we might want to do, we could have done this probably as a follow-up to a meeting, but they actually presented to us the proposal that they will be presenting to the board formally in April. Sans PowerPoint, but very clearly 3 leaders of that group presenting their best thinking about school boards and how we may select students who represent the whole and also represent the varying levels, which is, I think, something that's going to be unique to our board, is that most have juniors and seniors, and our group feels very strongly that they have a broader representation that includes middle school, which is really, really exciting when we think about leadership and mentorship. I was humbled, as I know Director Eto was, and he shared, by their thoughtful considerations and the time they've taken to really consider how it is that you're inclusive, but also how do you hold high expectations for young people who are going to be models for other students. I am really looking forward to their formal presentation next month, and will warn the board that they will probably be asking us a question. And that question is probably going to be, why do we want scholars on our school board? One of the questions I asked them was, it's usually a two-way street. If we're asking you to come spend time with us, what is it that you might want to get out of it? But their question to us was also, why is it that we would like them up here, and what would be our goal if that was a successful relationship? So I'm really looking forward to that. I also went to NSBA and did my continued learning around issues of educational equity, and there were many to choose from. I also attended a really good workshop on board self-assessment, and we've really come a long way on that process, but I think it's a continuous quality improvement, and it's always something we can do better about how it is that we're not only looking at how everyone else is doing, but we're looking internally at how we're doing individually as board directors, but also as a team of 5 in supporting Dr. Campbell in moving the district forward. Also went to a very interesting workshop on human trafficking, and like it or not, it's alive and well here in Federal Way, along with many other of our communities in the South County area. And when we think about our young people and we think about our scholars who come to us with so many issues, many of them we don't even begin to know, and we have to, there's been a great national movement, and there's a lot of work that's been happening with the Department of Education on tools and ways to help staffs and school personnel recognize victimized youth, just as we've learned about child abuse and neglect. And many districts have created in their child abuse and neglect policies specifically looking at trafficked youth as a part of that population as far as being mandated reporters. So very interesting conversation about what's happening across the nation. The only other thing I would say is that we have a WASDA Director Area 2 regional meeting this Thursday that I hope to see my fellow board directors at. We get together quarterly, and it's board directors from all of the King County school boards. We'll have a pre-workshop on social media, and then have an opportunity to dine and chat about all things school board directors. And I know fully funding education is one of our topics. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Drake. Director Gregory. No.
I also wanted to talk about the conference we just attended and the impact it had on me. I might say that Ariana Huffington's presentation was very important and meaningful, I think, to everybody in the room, because we all are guilty and know it of using our devices way too long and being too tuned to them for a lot of calm and rest in our world. You could reach her work by A.H. Thrive Global. Her name of her company is Thrive Global, and she would love to hear other people's stories about how they're addressing the question of the role of devices in our world and how we're doing as human beings with those. The second thing I was very interested in was a session I went to on public records requests. And when I was in the legislature, one of the committees I worked on, worked a lot on public records requests, not only how you fill the request, but also how you pay for it. And this is also an issue that I wanted to hear how other school districts were doing it, and so I found that valuable. But the one that impacted me the most was that I fell in love with Durham, North Carolina. And I never imagined I would fall in love with Durham, North Carolina when I went into this session. But what they are doing around equity of education was absolutely amazing to me. And what really struck me is what an individual sitting next to me who's from South Carolina, another board director, was telling me about what's going on in South Carolina. And it has to do a lot with how do we get our self-esteem. And I've been thinking about this a long time, and wondering what impact history has on our own self-esteem. And I'm a Scandinavian. In fact, I'm a Swede. And that was drilled into me very clearly by my parents. And I can also tell you all the virtues of the Vikings, which many of you may not know, and how women were treated so I build on that in a positive way. But what if you don't know your background? What does that do to you as an individual? And they're, particularly in South Carolina, they're beginning to address that question. And as I look at the ads that they're doing now for people getting their DNA results. And you realize that there are many people in this world and in this community and our children whose parents don't know where they really came from. And therefore, that strength and support of your history and who you are is hard. It lessens your ability and the support systems that you have. So I've been thinking a lot about this. Dr. Campbell and I are going to get together and think about this more, because I really think we're missing the opportunity with some of our students to really strengthen their interest. And I'll tell you just a very quick story and then I'll shut up. But I was working in the Highline School District doing community engagement, and we had in one of our schools, a middle school, a group of students, particularly African American girls, who were struggling with school and just acting out. And I happened to have a meeting with the Federal Way, some people from the Federal Way School District, and they were telling me about some African dance that they were teaching. And what it was, the impact it was having on some of their students. And so we tried it. And those students initially, their goal in life was to be blonde and blue-eyed. That was their mantra. By the time that was over, they really felt powerful about their own history. They weren't sure totally what it was, but they had a sense of it. And I don't know if that's as real as I think it is, but I'm excited about what they're doing in both of North Carolina and South Carolina and the impact that might have on students feeling powerful and that impacting their learning. So that's one that I'm going to explore. I'm very interested in it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll make this kind of quick. I just want to make sure that all of you stay aware as we walk through and up to the legislature at the state level. It is their paramount duty to make sure that we fund McCleary and fund basic education. So I'd encourage you to look at the bills that are out there for the House and the Senate, begin to understand what is there, and reach out to your legislatures and give them feedback to make sure that we focus on our scholars and keep them at the forefront to fund things correctly so we can actually give them the best education possible. Along the same vein, make sure you stay aware of what's happening on the federal level. House Bill 610 wants to voucherize everything for all of our funding for all of our title money. And so it's important to be aware of what's happening at the federal level. It's kind of sitting there right now, but it is kind of an ominous bill that could really impact our school district. And so please be aware of that, to reach out at the federal level as well. And then I too attend in the conference, and the Huffington keynote definitely hit home for me. I think it hit home for all of us to really begin to look and understand, not only for ourselves, but our families and our counterparts and Dr. Campbell, to make sure that we truly do. 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night is what you really need to completely regenerate. She said unless you have, I forget what she called it, you can have 4 hours only if you have a, what did she say?
That was a defect.
Yeah, some kind of defect. You can only truly get by on 4 hours if you have a genetic defect. And there are less than 1% of us in the entire world that have this defect. So if you're riding around on 4 hours of sleep, more than likely you need double that amount, right? And really take an hour before you lay down to go to sleep to break from your technology. Don't lay in bed and do it. Don't have your phone laying by your bed. Leave your phone downstairs or in another room so you truly disconnect and get a full night's sleep, right? I mean, all of those buzzes and whistles. I think it's important to just, as a community, and then we think about the scholars, right, that don't get enough sleep anyway, and they're going till 3 or 4 in the morning doing it and then being woken up, and it's definitely something that
I just want to really, that's a good point. She brought up the point of scholars sleeping with their phone under their pillow. They go to sleep and then someone texts them and then they wake up in the middle of the night. And just really having parents to be careful about that. That really just haunted me. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just think that was the idea with the bed. The bed for the phones was to put it somewhere and have all children, all adults, anybody with anything electronic would literally put it to bed, which was,
Yeah, because it has 10
Caused
slots.
us laugh,
You can plug-
yeah.
You can plug 10 devices
devices,
into
yeah.
this bed, right? So all technology can go away and go to bed, and you can cover it up with the blanket. And then there were a couple sessions I went to. I went to one by a New York individual that's been in the education field for 30 years and started out taking care of autistic children and then ended up with an autistic son of her own. So she had the perspective of both sides and where that partnership is. And an astounding statistic is 1 in 68 are now some out of all students in the country are somewhere on the spectrum. So it was just an interesting piece to listen to. And then I also went and listened to a superintendent from Delaware of a school district that had about 17,000, and their dropout rate is down to 0.9%. 45 students, they know them by name, they know exactly where they're at, and the processes that they're doing, starting actually in elementary, to make sure, looking at it at elementary, secondary, middle and high, to look at all students, to make sure there's plans for all of them as early as that, to make a difference in it. The biggest thing for me is that as he shared his plan, I can tell you that at least 3/4 of the things that he's doing is enveloped in our strategic plan. And so there were just some highlights. I handed it off to Dr. Campbell just to make sure she could look at it. But overall, we're on the right path as this district and where we're going based on the strategic plan that's been created. And I was very excited about that. So that's it on comments. But I do see one individual that filled out a public comment sheet. Are you interested in making a public comment this evening? Okay, all right, just making sure.
It's written.
Okay, well, you can turn it in then. If it's written, that's fine.
Yes, where does he turn it in?
Right up here. You can give it right over there. All right, our last item on the agenda is our response to sub-ins 3. So directors, it is in front of you. And I would entertain a motion if someone is ready or any other comments that may be made around it.
I didn't see where I had the comment made about some things that were mentioned during the work study, and I just wanted to make sure it was being tracked. And one of them had to do with the idea that there needs to be some sort of a data dictionary so that everyone's consistent. The example that was given is, what is it to be tardy? Because unless you have consistent data, the data going up or down is kind of meaningless. And then there was this point made about hidden rules and what it means even by the gender of the teacher or the gender of the student when somebody is judging somebody as being organized or not, so that everyone kind of needed to understand what the rules were so that they could play the game and be rated properly. So I just wanted to make sure that these were things that were recognized, that are being acknowledged and being worked, as maybe some things that needed to be tweaked a little bit to make sure that we're managing on the facts and not managing on data that really is kind of nebulous.
Okay, so part of what my responsibility is to come up with a single voice document. And so I take each of you individual comments and try to collectively create them into one whole. So if I'd seen that in several, then I would pull that together in several. What I would encourage, we can change it. So first I would actually ask for a motion, and then we can have discussion.
I move that the Board of Education approve sub-N3, a voice, whole child, personal responsibility and citizenship is in compliance.
A motion, do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, now discussion. So, Director Eto, to respond to you, I did see your comments, but again, I think it's important that this document is a single voice document of all 5. I would encourage you, and you can ask and present an amendment to what's here, but if it doesn't come through on that, then in the discussion in June when we talked about it, we begin to talk about all points of things that we want. I think that would be the time to bring it in and pull it in as direction for the district.
I would also say some of those things that I heard you say may, in my mind, land further down than what I'm comfortable weighing in on, and that would be more on the operations level. What I would ask is that as we move forward, that we would expect that in the measures of progress, when things are shown to us with data, that we would know what the definition was that they were using. And I'm not sure if that's what you were saying or not, but the fact that it doesn't show up in the report, that's not for us to determine. I think what we're looking for is that there is a common definition, and that in the report that Dr. Campbell gave us, and again, this is baseline, and we did talk about the fact that we have to kind of move forward, but I would, from what I've heard you say, I'm uncomfortable in putting something down like that because I think that's not at the level that we should be looking at the information at.
Any other comments?
Well, I guess my view is that we're agreeing that the superintendent is properly setting up the metrics to ensure that the board can track the initiatives in a meaningful way. And so if the superintendent has personally recognized that there's some shortcomings, I just wanted to make sure that it was understood that those would be addressed as part of this process. So whether it's stated here or not, I guess is to me, not that meaningful. I just wanted to make sure that when we get to the end of this process, that if we've recognized that there's some shortcomings, that those are being worked.
And I will tell you that we do that, Director Edo. You had some great ideas and great pointers, and each of you, if you notice, our presentations are sharpened based on your feedback, and we'll continue to take that in consideration. And certainly outlining the vocabulary that we're using so that our stakeholders understand them is in our interest. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You're right. Because, let me tell you what I'm going to talk to you about. Because when all you know of your history is that you have been oppressed, and sometimes even in the civil rights movement, there are only one or two people. People need to know their history. They need to know that resistance and that there are people that fought. That's an important narrative. It's called a counter-narrative. So there's a lot of research on critical race theory that talks about that.
Well, that plus even going back further, you know,